Hello, I'm Rick of RD Baker Photos, and I'd like to welcome you to the channel. Please be sure to give us a thumbs up and also take that extra second to hit that subscribe button. We would be extremely grateful. But for right now, let's just get straight into this video. So go ahead and roll that intro. We finally made it to episode 4, the Flavor Series, which is personally my favorite series simply because when I do happen to have that occasional drink, the flavors are my go-to. For example, 1 1/2 ounce of Vanilla Crown with 1 ounce of Irish Cream, and then just top it off with your favorite root beer and stir for a refreshing root beer float. It is delicious. But enough of that for now. We will get into a few drink recipes in the 5th and final episode in this series later. In this particular series, I currently have all 8 flavors that have been produced to date, and I have tasted 7 of the 8 throughout the years. Maple. So why not make your first introduction into the flavor series a Canadian specialty? Well, that's exactly what they did in 2012 with the release of Crown Royal's maple flavored whiskey. They combined a maple flavor with a distinctive smoothness and finished it in maple toasted oak barrels for that delightfully sweet and yet warm flavoring. However, maple is no longer in production and has been retired since 2014. And it has become a very difficult bottle to find these days as well. Next, in 2014, they released Regal Apple, which just happens to be one of my personal favorites. And it was blended with the hand-select whiskeys infused with the taste of Regal Gala Apple for a perfectly balanced Canadian whiskey with the notes of a crisp apple. And you just can't go wrong with some Crown Apple and Coke. So now we move into 2016, and during this year, Crown Royal introduced us to 2 new flavors. The honey flavor, which was released in the spring of 2016, and then the vanilla flavor released in late summer of that same year. Honey was intended and was to be a limited edition. Honey did in fact stop being produced in late 2016 with its unique sweet flavoring, and is now a retired whiskey from Crown that has become much more difficult for consumers to find. Now vanilla, on the other hand, came along later in 2016, and Crown Royal hand-selected these whiskeys and then infused that blend with Madagascar bourbon vanilla. And the result was a sophisticated whiskey bursting with flavor. And for me, it ranks right up there with that Regal Apple and is a favorite of mine. Remember that root beer float I mentioned earlier? Because it gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Now moving forward into the winter of 2017, we were introduced to Salted Caramel. It was intended to be a winter and holiday only release, intent on making your holidays a bit more festive. But it's managed to become a year-round whiskey, available in all of your stores today. This whiskey was infused with a sweet but yet salty taste of indulgent salted caramels, which created lush and creamy notes in this fine whiskey. Next up is a whiskey that I never even knew existed until I began collecting Crown Royal just a few short months ago. And I even live in Texas. But in May of 2018, Crown Royal decided to create a blend of whiskey that would celebrate the relationship between Texas and Canada that dated back to the days when Canadian men were pouring into Texas to find those jobs working in the Texas oil fields in order to support their families back home in Canada. And with each man bringing along a bottle or 2 of his favorite Canadian whiskey, well, this helped to create the love that exists today between the Texas people and Crown Royal. Today, Texas is still the largest consumer of Crown Royal products in all of America and its territories. I personally have never tasted this particular flavor, and the bottle in my collection will not be opened. It was hard enough to find it without me trying to locate another bottle just for tasting. Texas Mesquite was retired at the end of 2018, making it a limited edition. And now as we continue to move forward into 2019, Crown Royal introduced the world to peach-flavored whiskey. Once again, Crown Royal's blenders selected the finest blends of their whiskey and infused it with the real taste of ripe Georgia peaches. The result was a vibrant whiskey bursting with the luscious flavor of peach that brings some juicy sweetness to your summer season. Peach was also intended to be a limited release, but the demand and popularity of this flavor has kept it on store shelves as a year-round product, at least for now. There were no new flavor releases between the years following 2019 through 2024 until Crown Royal introduced us to another brilliant flavoring of the BlackBerry edition. In early spring of this year, intended to be a summertime only release, much like the peach and many of the other flavors, Crown Royal has its blenders select the finest of their blends and then infused it with the juicy flavor of fresh blackberries in order to create this exquisite summertime drink, especially when mixed with some lemonade. Who knows what the future holds for the Crown Royal flavor series, but one thing is for sure. Crown Royal will be creative in coming up with their next idea and their flavoring, and the world will impatiently await just to see what that might be. What do you want to see next? Be sure to tell us below in the comments. Now, stay tuned for episode 5, where we will recap the entire current collection and we'll move out to the drink station and whip up a few of my favorites that include a variety of Crown Royal products. And please, drink responsibly. See you there.